Hello everyone, it's Eon here, and it's time to start looking at January 2025. Happy New Year! I hope everyone is doing well and having a wonderful new year. A couple things off the bat here. I'd always do my videos alphabetically, and the fantasy has gotten so big here at the overview number 1, which is our first look at the month of January. For some creators, this will be the only look we look at them. For others, we'll come back and revisit them throughout the month because they release throughout the month. But just to kind of make sure everyone's on the same page here, this video has gotten so big that I'm actually going to split it. And we're going to do it A to K, and that's about the halfway point. And then we'll do L to Z. And I'll put both videos up pretty close to the same amount of time. And that way you can go watch what you want to watch, and hopefully the whole thing. But yeah, we're not going to sit. I'm not one of those guys that's going to sit here and constantly ask, hey, don't forget to hit the subscribe and the like button. I've done it once. That's good enough for the whole year, right? Good. All right, let's get started here. Arbiter Miniatures is going to be our first look, and this month is the Obelith Monstrosity. And usually they do about 3 supported and 3 supportless, but this guy is so huge, I don't think they really need to do a whole lot more. You're also getting a little bit of scattered terrain. Some of it is supported, some of it is supportless. And just kind of a miniature there for reference, that you don't get that miniature this month, but just to kind of show you how big the Obelith is. Artisan Guild is doing Faldorn Hobgoblins this month. Now, Artisan Guild has several different tiers in several different places. And if you do their collector's tier, which I happen to do, you get the busts. And so you get several busts of several of the creations for this month. Now, if you subscribe to them on their website, artisanguildminiatures.com, you get a couple of exclusives with their Guild Hall game. And you can see what those look like, what some of those look like over here on the right. But there's what you get for everything for this month's release. So you get some Faldorn Hobgoblins, and there's another Guild Hall release there. Sorry for cutting a little bit of that text off, but I think you still saw enough of the miniature. That's what we're here for, right? We have some Faldorn Hobgoblins, their alternative version, and here we have War Chief Giroz, the High. He comes with an alternate version, so if you want him with his helmet or without. Here's Hobgrog the Brewmaster. He seems a pretty jolly fellow. And Catapult. They always release you some sort of pin-up model. And this is Grinya the Shaman. And she comes in a couple of versions, cape or no cape. And Bloodtusk, King of the Hogs. You can have him with a rider or not. Probably just as deadly either way. Faldorn Warhog riders, or the Warhogs without their riders. All of that from Artisan Guild this month. Archvillain Games does 2 releases, a fantasy and a sci-fi, this being the fantasy video. Obviously, we're going to look at the fantasy. And the fantasy theme this month is Gladeborn, Trials of Kurnanos. Here's Nimrathal, the Spirit of the Valley. And Elitherus, a bloom worm. For me, it's kind of like some sort of alternate dark Bulbasaur version. Here we have a Sap Drinker Dryad. We have a Veil Prowler Spirit. And Elmira Shadowmark over on the right. Usually you get a few PC style heroes like that, and I think that's their Archvillain Society. Here we have Arendor Valtris. I really like that mage. There's something classical about him. And Malcor Hesh. I think this is set 43 if I'm reading that correctly. XL111. Miranal Glade Hunter 1. These come in 4 styles, so basically it's a centaur with a rider. We have Nelithar Glade Guard that come in 4 different sculpts. We have an Oaken Dryad. Which reminds me of something from the Upside Down and Stranger Things, personally. But Thornweave Dryad. They do not look friendly. We have a wild-packed Weird Strider. And that's from Archvillain Games. Avatars of War is releasing this month the Grotling Battle Ready Wagons. So these come in several different sculpts and varieties. There are 6 of them, so there's the back view. And a few more views. BattleYak Miniatures has a fantasy release of sorts, more like Ancient Times. So Ancient Warfare, the January 2025 release, you can see there if you have any interest in any historicals. I don't do a historical video because that would be a very short video, but pretty much BattleYak Miniatures and War Games Atlantic and maybe 1 or 2 others. But so we'll just put them in fantasy because no gunpowder in any of these. BattleYak Miniatures this month has the Wrath-Forged Widow Slayers. Notice this is one sculpt from multiple angles. Comes with a variety of weapons for however you want to slay. And here we have them on a Warhog, I believe these are referred to as. The Beholder Miniatures continues One Sin for 7 Kingdoms, and you get a good spattering, I think that would be the right word, of miniatures here. So on the left we have basically like chaos style critters. I forget what they referred to them as. And we have some dwarves in here. These are referred to as blunderbuss. Here we have some minotaurs, which come from the chaotic areas, and we have some dwarves with crossbows. And this is a undead manticore, as memory serves. Thought I had this written down, but apparently I didn't. And we have some dwarves on the right here that, to me, have an Aztec inspiration, which I find very interesting, but it works. It works. And then we have a elf lord on a phoenix. And I do like having the top-down view here because I think you really don't see the flame effects so well. This thing would be a beast to paint, I imagine. Or a lot of fun, depending on your viewpoint. And of course, the Phoenix can fly free without a rider. Bestiarum Miniatures was suggested to me a long time ago by Robert B. Joker, and this month we have a couple of different releases. I think I'm actually going to split some of this into science fiction as well, because we're getting into kind of a technology laboratory gone wrong kind of scenario. I'll include the preview here as well, because it is kind of, is it fantasy, is it science fiction, is it more what I would refer to as modern? And this even here could be modern as well. This is the Spiral Darum. And then we have Alstein, and this is what I said I'm going to put a little bit more of in the sci-fi video, I think. But yeah, it's like, just because you can experiment doesn't mean you should. And then for the Penitent Hero, we have these 3 guys. The gas mask makes me think this needs to be in the science fiction video, but definitely interesting characters. So let's look at some of the detail of these models, because that's really where Bestiarium excels. Big Bad Evil Guy has put out a preview of Vlaki, Messenger of Chaos. And yeah, I'm not a subscriber to Big Bad Evil Guy, and it's hard for me to get very high quality images here, but there's kind of an overshot of everything that you get with this character for this month. Bite the Bullet Studios is doing kobolds again this month. So we'll have D&D kobolds specifically, actually, because practically if you want to have an adventuring group of alternative heroes, you can do so. With a throwback, you'll get some other critters along the way as well. So if you want to play a kobold artificer or barbarian, a bard, or a rogue, a cleric or a wizard,
take candle,
a ranger or a paladin, a fighter or a monk, a stalker, not sure which class that is, or an alchemist, warlock or druid, an inventor, and I did put the view secondly because that's obviously intended to be a skunk. If it comes put together like that, good luck getting that paintbrush in there. And then we have Esmeralda, the Lady of Dreams, which is their exotic release, as they like to call it. Blue Giant Studios is one of the smaller tier creators in that they don't release a lot, and they're not overly expensive. We have Elwyn Fernwood, comes in a couple of different versions for part of the double release for January. And the second part of that release is Myra Dubloon. Cast and Play Miniatures in the month of frozen January, and as I record this, a lot of the country is getting hit by a snowstorm, so we're going into the frozen north of the Northwind Vikings. It's kind of appropriate. For their throwback pack, you do get a spattering of miniatures from various selections. We get number 919 set, which is the Barbarian Viking Warriors. We have Barbarian Berserks. Apparently the word berserk supposedly comes from the term bear. I'm not sure if that's entirely true, but it was something I heard recently. Barbarian Valkyries. Heavy Vikings. Oracle Vikings. Some Viking folk, so some town folk or some children that you can populate your Viking village with. We also have an Elephant Folk Viking, a little bit bigger miniature than normal. A Nordic Wolf. Considering the lightning, does that mean that wolf is worthy? That would be an interesting what if, wouldn't it? Armored Barbarian. And some Nordic theme bases as well. Always an interesting release from Cast and Play. Claudio Casini Art was recommended to me, by Alric. Thank you, Alric. You're always so generous in all the recommendations you make for me. But we see here, this is just one picture here, but we see the Christmas Tree Man. We see a science fiction monk, a rabbit folk ranger. I believe that's the monkey folk warrior, a fox folk leader, I can't read my own notes here. And on the back, at the very top, we see multi races of fighter. So And then there's some loyalty rewards down there at the bottom for if you subscribe for a while. Clay Beast Creation is going back into the desert borders this month. So we have some Dune Warriors. That may be my term, not theirs. A Chariot. And a Snake Charmer. I'm trying to think of what those... They're griffins, but they're not griffins because they don't have wings. There's another term for those I've seen elsewhere, but that may be a different creator. And I believe this is part of their throwback pack for this month. Claymore Miniatures has not released renders yet, sadly, but we have looked at these previews. I'm going to include them here for the sake of completion. But we have Morveth, Warden of the Silent Abyss, and Hashkan, Champion of the Dark Sea. We have a Masked Challenger, and a Tamed Ogre Beast. We have Prince Victor, and he comes with a Royal Griffin, and I've said it before, I'll say it again. Claymore, I'm really looking forward to the renders of that miniature. We have a Marksman of the Red Forest, and a Dragon Slayer Diana. It's a lot of sharp bits on that armor. We have a Herald of the Tournament, and a Disguised Assassin. I wonder what he's up to. And then we have Rolthar, Champion of the Griffin Knights. So you mean to tell me we might get 2 Griffins? That's pretty cool. And Froggy, the Champion of the South Tribes. Notice this is a large miniature. So, yeah. Comet Lord Miniatures is a kind of a medium-sized tribe. They don't have the huge releases of some others, and they're properly priced as well because of that. This month you're getting the Star Eater, Malice the Corrupted Mage, and these usually come in several sculpts. I believe there's only one sculpt of this one and the other one currently, but like Old Mage of the Comet Lord comes with a mask or without. Reminds me a lot of Dr. Fate. Crippled God Foundry is doing both a science fiction release on the right and a fantasy release on the left, both of which are based around gnolls. So for January fantasy release, we have Hunger Incarnate. Here we have a Demon Lord of Savagery, some Gnoll Brutes, and Dire Hyenas. A Gnoll Pack Lord, and a Gnoll Shaman. Gnoll Warriors, and Witherlings. And then, again, did anybody notice the inspiration for the PC hero characters here? We have Anno, the Battlemaster. He's a lion folk. And then Tara the Monk. I bet she runs really fast, like a cheetah. And then we have Tro, the Barbarian. And then some abandoned mines and Gnoll's chambers for lots of adventures in various places. Daybreak Miniatures has released kind of a preview. I think they'll release a better preview soon of the Anthrosaurs of Triju. This reminds me of some of the Saturday morning cartoons I watched back in the 80s. Also reminds me of Dinotopia, or even of, what was the name of that RPG? I cannot remember offhand. You also get a few busts as well. Dino and Dog we've looked at in the preview video, has done a few releases. And they have 2 tiers, so the Displacer Beast, while not a prehistorical critter, is part of their dungeon tier as well. DM Stash is doing Devils and Divine, and here's kind of a snapshot all in one image of everything you'll be getting this month. One thing that I always like to point out with DM Stash is they do both a 2D map that goes along with the 3D printed terrain that you can print off. We have Elysia, Maiden of Namneri, comes in a bust form as well. We have Fortuna, Succubus of the Sixth, and Nazmarka, Mother of the Abyss. Gresnos, the Broken Flame, Demons of the Abyss, Nusmini Warriors, Silaros, the Ascended, or Aranimali, the Soulbringer, Istar the Redeemer, a Tiefling Divine Soul Sorcerer, Giant Infernal Skull, Leopold the Undying, a Cursed Paladin, Horathon, Father of War and Peace, Morius, the Angel of Death, Nazmarka's Hellish Abyss, and those are basalt columns. Feels like it could be maybe adapted for Heroscape terrain. Angels of Sildan, Selvanari Warriors, and Varana, the Hunter of Hellspawn. It looks like she'll have her work cut out for her. The Dragon Trappers Lodge is doing a couple of releases. We're seeing some previews here. We have Tales from Frostheart Lodge. So we'll look at a couple of these miniatures in more detail, but they haven't released a whole lot of renders just yet. As well as Cult of the Pale One Part 3. And they have released a calendar of what they're planning to do for the first few months of 2025. And apparently a frontier in April for Dungeon Classics. Now, Dragon Trappers Lodge is one of those that has like a basic tier and then 2 other tiers. So at their basic tier, you get this collectible Woolly Snorf. For Tales from Frostheart Lodge, a couple of miniatures we're seeing are Woolly Snubsnout and Sven the Tail Tailor. We have a Great White Bullworm as well. We'll probably come back and look at them again when they've released a few more renders. For Cult of the Pale One Part 3, we have Dire Turtle Riders and a Fargazer and an Arbiter of the Pale One. Dragon's Lake Miniatures is doing the Infernal Dwarves again. So a couple of views of that, and let's just look at a couple of these in more detail. Here's the Infernal Bastion. Here we have a Citizen Giant. Not exactly sure what that means there. We have some Vassal Cavalry Archer. A Vassal Conjurer on Mount. This is the Cavalry's command group. Curious if you prefer seeing the bits like this or seeing the actual models. New this month, I believe, I think they may have started in December, but this is a relatively new Patreon or tribe, really, is the Dragon's Rest. Now, the Dragon's Rest is a series of tiles for the most part. I'm not exactly sure where all their releases are, but they do have this sample pack for free that you can go and download and try out. And that looks like quite a bit of stuff going on right now, in my opinion. I've actually got some of this stuff printing off right now as I record on my Bamboo Lab P1S, and they actually release a 3MF file that comes with 4 plates worth of this stuff plated, ready for you to send to your printer and print. So if you have a Bamboo Lab and you have any interest in this type of terrain, definitely go check that out. Now, part of their welcome pack includes this terrain. I don't know so much about the board, maybe the board, but this is probably the game that was my gateway game into this hobby. Obviously a HeroQuest board with low half walls, so you're not really blocking the miniatures, which is really what we want to look at, isn't it? For the month of December, they did release apparently this. I was thinking they started in January, but for the month of December, if you started back in then, you saw this release here. So very interesting release, and I don't normally do December releases in my January video, but just to kind of show you what you might be looking at. Alric also recommended that I look at Duncan Shadow, and Duncan Shadow again is doing Holy Warriors this month. I believe this golem is part of the January release as well. Some more Holy Warriors, and you're also getting some trolls. The trolls also come in a female version. And he recently put out these Holy Warriors with rifles as well, so I may throw those into the science fiction video because those don't look like basic rifles. Dungeon Classics has done a free mini until January 10th. This is a Goliath Barbarian, so be sure to check that out if you can. This comes actually from Dragon Trapper's Lodge. And for the month of January, some of what we'll be getting is an Ankeg, a Gulthias tree. I'm not familiar with that offhand. Moscow Anchorite of Talos, and some Anchorites. Dungeon Dog is doing a Balor this month, along with a few, I think these are Lizard Man zombies. And you also get a PDF adventure and a battle map to go along with these. Dungeon Dog is not the more expensive ones. In fact, they have I think they still have early bird positions open for around $4 US a month. Actually thinking about checking it out myself. So don't go take all those slots from me, folks. I may change my mind, because that's a pretty nice Balor. Alright, y'all, it's time for Epic Miniatures. Epic Miniatures has done update number 1, Oriental Fortress. So we see several huts. We see some boats and village towers. Here we have a Tiefling Merchant. He wants people to hunt a rare genie for him. And here we have a Belly Dancer. We have a Great Guard Drake Brass. And an Assassin Prince. Here we have a Cat Djinn, and their quote is, "What is your fish, meow?" These are part of just army models. These are general, generic army military models. So you can print these off several times, one here, one there as needed. Why does that guy have 4 arms? He must not be exactly human. Here we have a Cyclops Mage. We have a Vizier's Abomination. Here we have a Grinning Djinn. A Fungi Merchant. Oriental Fungi Merchant, excuse me. A Scorpion Centaur Lady. And a Scorpion Centaur Warrior. Epic has already released update number 2 for the month of January, which is Ancient Nature. Here we have an Elven Swan ship and a wooden wagon, as well as some forest ruins. We have a satyr tiefling female. We have a myrmidon heir. They say this is the last of the myrmidons that they have done. This time they were doing heir. This guy is a beetle tamer. It says you can buy beetles of all sizes from this tamer. So naturally, he needs to have a beetle to ride on, right? And of course he needs some other beetles that he's willing to sell. So here's some wild giant beetles, which are a lot more gentle than you would think. Here we have an insect knight lady. Now notice she comes with a version with a helmet and a version without a helmet as well. So she has several insectoid traits like a horn and some wings as well down her back. Some of these are better in some of the images that I've posted here. You can go on Epic's Patreon or Tribe and look at the miniature previews as well and see much better images that are turned around. Here we have a baby phase panther. And a guard drake copper. And this is apparently the last of the guard drakes that they have been doing for the last few months. Here we have a high elf king. Definitely looks inspired by something. And he comes on a deer mount, which apparently is the deer king. There's also a set of elves to make an army for the elf king. These come in several sculpts, several different weapons, and even mounted as well, depending on how you want to print them to make your own elf army. Here we have a forest Alron. I'm not familiar with the term. It says deadly being closely related to dryads. She lures humans with her scent and captures them with her beauty. Alron. Here we have a tree dryad guru. A fawn centaur. More deer than horse. And over on the right, just to kind of save slides here, an apex predator. This is the horned beast, which is our final miniatures from Epic Miniatures for the month of January. Flesh of Gods Miniatures is doing Crimson Frost this month, and they do a few different releases. So here's the huge and gargantuan enemies that you'll be getting. Frostfont the Vampire Beast and Revenant King. So here's just another view of those miniatures. You have several enemies you'll be getting this month. Glacier Stalkers, Crimson Knights, and Larice the Frost Widow. Valric the Blood Rage, Deathlock, Scarlet Oracle, a Winter Harpy, and Tiberian the Crimson Sage. These are all medium 25mm base models. You have a couple of large models you'll be getting this month, including a Blood Bear and a Vampiric Yeti, and a Glacial Wraith. But here's one of the Crimson Knights, more up close. Here's the Deathlock and the Glacier Stalker, or one of them. Tiberian and Lysair. There's the large enemies. Valruk Blood Rage and a Scarlet Oracle. Winter Harpy. And then we have Aldrich, Winter's Requiem. Now he's part of the heroes and NPCs, which you'll get 4. Kalen, Myra, Aldrich, and Lucian. And again, I really just like Lucian's pose there as the Sunblade Knight. And then there's Kalen the Nomad Scout. You also get a couple of busts this month. Wish there was one of Lucian, honestly. But you'll get Tiberian and Aldrich. And then for the throwaway pack, you'll get the Necromancer, Thaldric, Blow Dragon, and Nevastodon. Fleshcraft Studios is part of the EverOn network now. This month is the Forgotten Crusade. There's a Veilbreaker. Gamescape 3D is continuing this month with their River set. So I believe these are all renders for January. So the idea being is that you have a piece of flat area probably to represent the water, and these come in 1 high or 2 high stacks that can fit together in order to make the banks of your rivers. In addition, you'll be getting some bridge or bridge transitions as well that allow you to make bridges to go over your rivers. So still a bit of work in progress from Gamescape. Ghamak is releasing for Fantasy this month, and I had to do a couple of double takes of what they were doing. I believe this is the Fantasy list, but no, it's not. I apologize. This is the Last Chance tier. This was a new concept to me, and actually I thought it was pretty neat. I'm not exactly sure how you go about getting this, but this was put out in the end of December that if you wanted to catch up on some stuff from Ghamak, they put together a special package tier that includes these things. There's a list on the right. I won't bother reading that to you, but you get a few dwarves, you get a few empires of mankind, you get a few undead pharaohs as well. But this is kind of a, hey, you missed a few cool things, we put a few of them together for you. They did this for both their fantasy and their science fiction sets. Maybe worth checking out. They also released their timeline for the first couple of months of January. So for January, it seems like we'll be getting Dwarven Kingdoms, Empire of Mankind, and Orcs of the Howling Steppes. Looks like we might be getting a new faction starting in February. And pretty much any month you get about 3 factions of the 4, 5, or 6 that they have listed here. And they did put out this little preview coming soon. We'll come back and look at Ghamak more later this month. Goonmaster Games has doing penguins mostly this month, along with some beavers. So just a little bit better renders here. Also, they're doing a lot of bases, which are based around trench warfare. So even if you're not interested in the animal humanoids, if you have interest in trenches, it might be worth picking up this month for those bases. They also have a few different pieces of scatter terrain that you can have access to as well. Great Grimoire is doing Shadows of the Frontline this month. So we have Matilda Glomstitch and a Blight Carver. We have a Candlekeeper and the Wrought Claw Triad. Great Grimoire is, I believe, kind of what I would call a medium tier Patreon. They release a few things, not too much, and honestly, if you print off everything you get for the month, you're getting your value. Some Patreons almost release too much. Can I say that? But I think Great Grimoire does great work. Highlands Miniatures for the month of January will be doing Sewer Vermin. So this is a relatively new faction for them. You'll be getting some Sewer Rats, Sewer Rat Command Groups, some Vermin Acolytes, and a Moving Sewer with optional bell and sensor, and a Rat Crew. So this is the Moving sewer with optional bell and censer. So the censer is the incense sensor in that respect, not censor as in we're going to shut your video down. And it comes along with a crew of about 4. You get some sewer rats. I'm wondering if the ones in the robes are the acolytes. Ichi Forge puts out a small 3 to 5 models every month. Again, what I would call a medium tier Patreon. And here we have the Tempest Wayfarers. We have Samson Strider. We have Emmerich Bullseye. And we have Eliam Swiftcut. Actually, looking at those weapons in their hands, those look more like pistols. Maybe I should add those to the science fiction video. And here we have some bases as well. M3 Desion is doing a January release this month. And that guy looks familiar. I'm a bit behind on my Zelda games, so I'm assuming this is a character from that. Honestly, it reminds me of a encounter in Avatar: The Last Airbender, but then we have some boars, pigs maybe, but boars with lights on their heads. That's very interesting. Infinite Dimension Games this month is doing furniture. So lots of nice scatter terrain. Lots of bookshelves as well. And as well as this tree, which comes in several parts. Kyoushuneko Miniatures, thanks Alric for recommending them, has only put out a couple of previews of things to come. So some Chinese Cathay Jade Warriors, as well as Ordo Luminous Foot Knight Command Group. And folks, that brings me to the K's, and I'm going to stop this video here because we're getting a little bit on the long side, and I really don't like going much past 30-45 minutes. And so I'm going to stop here. I'll put a link to the next video more than likely here as well, but we'll see you soon for the L to Z videos. Thanks for watching.